has embarked on a 3-day free medical outreach to internally displaced persons, IDPs, in Konduga local government area of Borno State, northeast Nigeria. The acting director, Army Public Relations, Colonel Sani Usman, said the 3 days free medical services to IDPs started on Wednesday and will end on Friday, August 14. Colonel Usman said that Boko Haram members had launched several attacks on Konduga, which is about 35 kilometers away from Maiduguri. He assured them of the security of lives and property. The Speaker of House of Representatives, Mr. Yakubu Dogara, has inaugurated a needs assessment committee to determine the actual cost of running the National Assembly. Speaking during the inauguration, Mr. Dogara said the assessment was important in order to determine if the legislature is underfunded or overfunded. The terms of reference include finding out the cost of communicating proceedings and activities of the House to the general public, as well as the cost of public hearing and live broadcast. A member of the committee, Awal Rafsanjani, expressed the confidence that members would do their best to deliver. The United Nations Fund for Population, UNFPA, says girl-child education is important to reduce increasing cases of vesico-vaginal fistula, VVF, in Nigeria. UNFPA country representative in Nigeria, Ms. Ratidze Lobo, said that education would have a multiplier effect on the girl-child's perception of life, well-being, and general societal development. She added that with education, women would deliver at the health facilities and reduce the menace of prolonged labor, which often leads to VVS as well as maternal mortality. Taraba State Government, northeast Nigeria, has inaugurated the 400-kilowatt Tunga Dam small hydropower plant to provide electricity to more than 10,000 people on the Mambila Plateau. The state governor, Darius Ishaku, said the power plant would also supply electricity to Kakara Highland Tea Factory, which currently services over 56,000 people. The project was executed by the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, United Nations Commission for Refugee, and the Taraba State Government. The United States Agency for International Development and the Nigerian Export Promotion Council have jointly trained more Nigerians in cashew processing. In a statement by the African Cashew Alliance, ACA, Communications Officer Monique St. Jare said the move was to boost the processing of cashew for export. The statement said that it was imperative for Nigeria to critically look at the challenges currently being faced by its cashew sector. The ACA was established in 2006 as an association of African and international businesses devoted to promoting a globally competitive African cashew industry. About 25 people have been killed in clashes between Islamic State and a rival Islamist group backed by armed civilians in the Libyan city of Sirte. Fighting broke out in a residential area of Sirte on Monday between Islamic State and a Salafist Muslim group backed by angry armed civilians. Airstrikes against IS positions have been conducted by the Egyptian Air Force and by Libya's internationally recognized government. Libya has been in chaos since the death of Colonel Gaddafi in 2011, with various militias fighting for power. Guinea-Bissau President José Mario Vaz has opened talks with the country's main political parties to form a new government after he fired the previous cabinet in a power struggle with the Prime Minister. President Vaz dismissed Prime Minister Domingos Simios Pereira on Wednesday in a row caused partly by overlapping duties in Guinea-Bissau's semi-presidential system. The United Nations, which has a mandate to promote peace and strengthen democracy in Guinea-Bissau, says the country is now experiencing a political crisis. South Sudan's government says it will pull out of peace talks to end a 20-month-long civil war after rebel forces split despite international threats of sanctions. The latest round of talks opened on August 6 mediated by the regional eight-nation bloc, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, as well as the United Nations, African Union, and the United States. Regional mediators backed by U.S. President Barack Obama during his recent visit to Ethiopia gave President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar until August 17 to halt the civil war. South Sudan civil war began in December 2013 when President Kiir accused his former deputy Machar of planning a coup, setting off a cycle of retaliatory killings. The United States has reopened its embassy in Cuba more than 54 years after it was closed. The first U.S. Secretary of State, John Kerry, to visit Cuba in 70 years, presided over the ceremony in Havana. The U.S. flag was presented by the same U.S. Marines who brought it down in 1961. Cuban leader Raul Castro and U.S. President Barack Obama agreed to restore ties in December last year. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has urged the leadership of every UN peacekeeping mission to address the issue of sex abuse by peacekeepers. Mr. Ban, who made the call during a conference with the head of UN peacekeeping mission in New York, said head of the UN peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic, Babacar Gaye, was leaving his position following a new sexual abuse allegation against UN troops in the country. He reiterated UN's zero-tolerance policy towards sexual exploitation and abuse, stressing that anyone found guilty must be held accountable irrespective of their position. And finally, on the world news, officials says militants from Islamic State are suspected of using chemical weapons in an attack against Kurdish forces in northern Iraq. German officials said Kurdish troops suffered breathing difficulties after an attack near the city of Erbil earlier this month. The Syrian government has previously said that all its stockpiles of such weapons have been destroyed. Earlier this year, the autonomous Kurdish government in northern Iraq said it has evidence that IS had used chlorine in a car bomb attack. And that's the world news. It's now back to you, Sokwa. Thank you indeed, Rebecca. The world news there, as presented by Rebecca Yunusa Avia. She'll be back much later with news about Nigeria. And if you've just tuned in, you're listening to 60 Minutes, reaching you from Voice of Nigeria, Abuja. The war against insurgency in the northeastern part of Nigeria has taken a new twist following the 3-month ultimatum given to the service chiefs by Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari to end insurgency in the country. President Buhari also mandated the service chiefs to ensure the welfare of troops, which many say is a morale booster to the military. In this interview, Voice of Nigeria's defense correspondent Chika Eze sought the views of Mr. Mike Ejiofor, a security expert, on the implications of the 3-month deadline.
One of the top agendas of Mr. President is security. I believe very strongly too that he's going to look at the welfare of the security country, because angry man they say is a hungry man they say is an angry man. So I think you should look at the welfare of the poor, encourage them as far as morale is.
Talking generally now, would you confidently say that we're actually winning this war against insurgency?
Of course, we are winning the war. You know, the elections, the 2015 election was postponed to enable them to flush out Boko Haram, and that was eventually achieved until recently that we now started stock target. And I recall that the former National Security Advisor, in his last interview, did mention that they are still extending some arms that they are ordered and are not there. I believe that government is a continuum, and within this period, they should be able to take delivery of those armaments with a view to pursue the cause of the war.
How would you situate the bilateral agreements and MOUs that the current president has entered into with our neighboring countries? Is this one of the reasons why he's giving that timeline of 3 months?
You know that exactly like Mr. President, when he came in, we have been consulting with our neighboring countries. It's insurgency or terrorism is not a war one country can fight. And recall that recently the Boko Haram has declared itself, declared support for ISIS and declared West African province of the Caliphate Leader controlling. So we need the cooperation of the other countries to ensure that the synergy in various countries and that diplomacy, the short diplomacy the president has attacked on ever since. And I think this is well.
Okay, this issue of attacks on soft targets by terrorists attacking markets and motor parks, especially in the northeast and all that. Is there any solution you can proffer to that? I mean, as an expert.
It calls for extra vigilance on part of the citizenry because the Boko Haram insurgents, they are human beings, they live human beings, and there's no way they can come and operate without people knowing them. In marketplaces, parks, and churches, mosques, we should be very, very conscious of the environment. Take notice of it, especially if you notice there's a trend that we use by the insurgents, using girls in hijab, young girls that, to go places. So people should be extra careful, especially when they're medical institutions. But my worry is that each time government comes out, there's a trend to that. Each time government comes out with a statement that we're giving the timeline in which to end insurgency and upsurge the activities of Boko Haram. So I think what we should be doing is to keep our operational plan mind and keep it to our heart and continue to prosecute the war. Instead of telling them what they doing, because it's time for provoking. They call the issue of the subsidiary place was pursued to when you give the time and it's much of the defense. And there's a trend. So I think government should be more careful issuing statements on their job plan.
That report was sent in by Voice of Nigeria Defense Correspondent Chika Eze. Nigeria is once again chairing the UN Security Council for the month of August. Among the issues to be addressed by the Council are the insecurity situations in some parts of Africa. In a telephone interview, a foreign affairs analyst, Ambassador Suleiman Dahiru, told Voice of Nigeria correspondent Nina Yoke what chairing the UN Security Council entails and the value that Nigeria would add to the Council.
Directly, it is incumbent on you to put your house in order. The Ogu is going to do it will be in accordance with the program for the month as laid out by the Secretariat. That is one aspect. Another aspect which we talked about insecurity. Insecurity is not restricted to Africa alone. Insecurity or terrorism, to be more precise, is a global issue. And if it is a global issue, Nigeria is seriously